everybody. Welcome back. Chapter 5 of Vegetables Love Flowers, the virtual online book study. I'm so glad you've decided to join me again this week. And so before I get started, I wanted to read you from this chapter. And this is the Cool Season Hardy Annual chapter. And we're looking at, I'm now on page 86. And this kind of really sums up a lot of the backstory on this chapter. Gardeners everywhere can reap the beauty and benefits of cool season hardy annuals. Hardy annuals bring flowers on earlier, and with these early flowers, beneficial insects are invited to come and set up housekeeping for the season. Even gardeners in areas with long, hot, humid summers, like mine, and in northern areas with long, frigid winters, can grow hardy annuals. It's just that we plant them at different times. Success with cool season hardy annuals is all about timing. Finding the hardy annual planting sweet spot for your garden will lead to years of abundant early rewards. I have to say that I hear from a lot of people how they don't realize it, but their struggle with the cool season kind of family annuals is because they plant at the wrong time. And so I just really want to hone in today and kind of help you find your sweet spot, right? So before we do that, I have to just show you this. Look at that bouquet. This bouquet is so beautiful in the book, but I just can't tell you how beautiful it was in person. That little white pitcher was our grandma's. It's a McCoy pitcher, and that's the pitcher that sits on my kitchen table all through the season, and that's where I change it out all summer. It's usually full of zinnias or lysianthus, but that was such a display of hardy annuals. If you just look at that abundance that you will only have if you find your sweet spot, right? So the first thing, and I'm looking at my notes, the first thing I want to speak to, I'm going to kind of talk about those folks that what I call are in warm zones and those folks in cool zones. People in warm zones are most of us that are in zone 6, zone 7, zone 8, and even zone 9. Those are winter hardiness zones. And if you don't know what zone you are, the best way to really get the lowdown on that is to call your cooperative local extension office. That's a government office. That's like where Master Gardeners are based out of. Just call your local office and say, hey, what winter hardiness zone are we? And they'll tell you, because most everybody in zone 6, 7, 8, and 9 can fall plant many of the winter, the cool season hardy annuals. And I want to say to you that the bottom line is that if you can plant in the fall, meaning if a specific cool season hardy annual survives winter in your zone, and the zones are listed in the book. And I'll just plug in here. This is my other book. This is Cool Flowers, which came out in 2014. So it's been out for 4 years now. This is a deep dive on this group of flowers. And I will tell you that starting last year, really, we're seeing tons of people that are finally getting it, right? And just reaping the bounties of an early spring garden. So there is a deeper dive available and more flowers featured in that book. But if you can plant a hardy annual in fall. If it says in either Cool Flowers, if you pick a flower that's not in Vegetables Love Flowers, if it says it's winter hardy in your winter hardiness zone, fall plant it. Why? They spend all winter getting established. They're more abundant. They're more disease and pest resistant. They bloom earlier. They bloom longer. The stems are longer. Everything about it is just a healthier, happier plant. So everybody that's below zone 6, and south, you need to really explore that and don't be afraid. So That's how those of us, because those zones that I just mentioned, we also suffer from hot, humid summers, right? And we think we can't even plant this group of flowers because we get too hot too fast. Well, when the plant is well established, it goes right into summer facing that heat and humidity like you've never seen because it's so well established. Now, the other side of the coin are the you folks that live in the cold areas of the country. I'm talking maybe the northern parts of Zone 6, Zone 5, Zone 4, Zone 3, and I know there's a bunch of you out there. I know we have a lot of Canadian friends that are growing in Zone 4 and Zone 5. There are a few hardy annuals that you could fall plant, but your sweet spot is planting really early in spring, and I'm going to talk in just a moment about how you figure out the actual timing. But early spring is where your big advantage is, but you also have a fall job. If you don't prepare the planting area for early spring in fall, you'll never be able to get into your garden to work, because guess what? In early spring, especially for most of you all, the ground may be covered in snow, wet from melting snow or ice, and the ground could be just barely thawing from being frozen all winter. So you must, that's probably one of the most common things that I hear. I'll post about this or speak, and people will say, they'll raise your hand and say, but I can't get into my garden in early spring. And that's the point. You prepare the spot in the fall, mulch it, cover it in landscape fabric to hold it, and then you just walk out and either pull the fabric back or plant through the mulch come early spring. So the sweet spot for the north is that early spring. You can plant this group of annuals weeks and weeks earlier than the warm season stuff, right? So that is how you are going to take full advantage of that. Now, what is the actual timing? What is fall and what is early spring? When you make that call to the extension office to find out what your winter hardiness zone is, the other piece of information that you can put it into a search engine and ask, but there is nothing better than talking to your hometown people, right? Is you need to find out when your first expected frost is in fall. Keyword expected. No, yes, it changes every year. The expected frost date is like an average of the last 5 to 10 years, usually. Your first expected frost date in fall and your last expected frost date in spring. Because those two dates are what you're going to base on when you plant. So if you're fall planting, you want to plant 6 to 8 weeks before that first expected frost. That allows your seed to sprout and grow big enough, or the transplant you plant to get established before you head into winter. 6 to 8 weeks is like optimal. Yes, I have pushed the envelope. It's harder to go earlier because it's still too hot for most of us, but I have pushed the envelope and gone beyond that date. For early spring, it's the same 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost, right? And that's why you're just going to walk out there. I do also, and I speak about this in the book, I do not recommend, all right, you don't have as good as results trying to plant seeds out in the garden 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost, because frankly, it's too cold. Nothing's going to sprout. So the best bet is to start indoors, 4 to 6 weeks before your 6 to 8 week planting date. So you walk out to your garden 6 to 8 weeks before your last expected spring frost and plug transplants in the ground. And that will get you really, really started. So how are you going to remember all these dates? The brain of me and my farm is all on a calendar. I do not use a phone, a cell phone for this, or a device for this practice. We have a big calendar that we use here on the farm. It hangs on the door on our work building. If it was for a home gardener, this would be right next to my back door where everybody comes and goes so I can see it. You need to sit down and figure out, get those key dates from your local extension office if you don't know them. And then sit down and you count backwards. Count back 6 to 8 weeks. Then if you got to start plants, you need to count back however many weeks you need to get a good sized transplant to plant out, right? The calendar is what it's all about. I will say that one of the gifts of hardy annuals is the seed starting indoors for both the warm season folks and the cool season folks. Is a gift for those of us that live, I'm going to say in the South, but I'm in Virginia. We have freezing cold winters, but we get to start transplants for fall planting like at the hottest part of summer, 6 to 8 weeks before our last frost date, and then you have to count back 4 to 6 weeks to get your transplant started. That's like the funnest job on our farm. You get to work inside in the air conditioning, and that is where we start cool season plants. Not in a greenhouse that's hot. We don't have greenhouses, but for those of you that do, don't think you're going to be starting cool season plants out in a greenhouse in, let's just say, mid-August or early August. It's way too hot. So you need to do it indoors where the air temperature is cool, but you're using a heat mat to warm the soil. And the other, for the cool season, you folks that live in the cooler parts of the country, guess what you get to do in January and February when everybody wants to be starting seeds because you're shut in. This is what you're going to be starting, not your tomatoes. You're going to be starting cool season annuals, right? So the calendar is what it's all about. Now, just a note about, I do list in the book my favorite cool season vegetables. I will say that most of us struggle growing these cool season vegetables because just like the flowers, we can't quite figure out when we plant them, right? So they follow the same outline that I just outlined for you. But I'll tell you that, unless you have super heavy snow load all winter, most of us can fall plant many of the cool season, especially the leaf stuff, lettuce, kale, chard, spinach. Plant them in the fall, harvest, give them time to regrow. We harvest them throughout winter under a simple row cover. Row cover is a really powerful tool, and when you're growing hardy annuals, whether it's flowers or vegetables, you really learn how that lightweight row cover can be really beneficial to you. As well as, I just double it. If it's going to go down to single digits and we have a beautiful crop of lettuce or spinach or whatever, and we're still cutting from it, I just go out there and put another layer of row cover on during those single digit times, right? I don't leave it on because it also cuts the light down. So I don't want to leave a double row cover on perhaps all winter, but I'll bring it up and down. We call it pulling the britches up and down on the row cover. So I'm just reading my tips here. So some other tips that I know I talk about in the book, but sometimes folks miss them. The number one death of cool season hardy annuals is not cold, because I'll tell you, who's afraid of the cold? Not these plants, it's us. We are so terrified that our plants are going to get killed out there, but that's not what kills cool season hardy annuals. It's poor drainage. Because you'll notice this now that you start dabbling in cool season annuals, so you're out in your garden in a time that you're not normally, you'll see that the soil does not dry out. That's one of the gifts of cool season annuals. You hardly have to irrigate because it stays wetter. It snows and rains typically more often, and because it's not hot during the day, the soil doesn't dry out. Well, that can get you. If you have a lot of rain or a lot of snow melt, that means the soil stays wet a lot, so you have to have excellent drainage. As well as, I wouldn't dream of trying to plant cool season hardy annuals in a flat bed or a flat garden. You've got to use raised beds. Even if you're not a raised bed gardener, your cool season hardy annuals do need to go into raised beds. And not only does it improve your drainage, like so totally excellent. I mean, it just fast forwards the drainage on your bed. Raised beds tend to warm faster and earlier, so that's just another great benefit. And I know I keep talking about the timing, but that's the secret to this. Timing is really the secret to organic gardening overall, but it is you have less wiggle room in timing with cool season hardy annuals. Right now, so we're filming this first week in May. I'm in the middle of reaping the bounty. I'm doing my first big harvest today of cool season hardy annual flowers. We've had trickles. This has been a long, cold spring, so they're a little later. But I'm going out to cut stock and snapdragons and sweet peas and poppies, and I'm trying to think what else, and white lace flower. We have so many native bees already in our garden busy, and ladybugs and other beneficial insects, and our assassin bugs have already gotten started. So the timing is really, really important. And so while I'm reaping these flowers, what do you think I'm hearing? What's my email box popping full of, and the phone calls that are coming in to hear the Gardener's Workshop farm phone? People are calling up and saying, I didn't plant my poppies. Do you think it's too late? Yes, it's too late for most of us. If you're in those really northern regions, you may still be able. But the rest of us in zone 6, 7, 8, and 9, it's too late. Timing is essential, folks. Just save your seeds. That calendar that we live off of, you know what I would do? I would take those seeds and paper clip them to the month that you're supposed to plant them. So I hope this is really helping you. And I'm just reading my note. And so the takeaway today is, if a plant is winter hardy in your zone, always fall plant it to reap the full benefits. And we also have cool flowers. I'd love to autograph a copy for you. If you really want to explore an awesome spring garden, that's the book for you. I hope you're enjoying the Vegetables Love Flowers book study and sharing it with your friends and sharing it on social media. We'd love for you to do that. And I'm going to ask you to do something else for me also. If you're enjoying Vegetables Love Flowers, no matter where you purchased your book, please go to Amazon and post a review. That is the number one thing that readers can do for an author, because for every so many reviews, Amazon then shows our books to people shopping, because you know there's like 100,000 new books every month. Can you believe that? And so there's a lot of books out there. And so that would really help me, and I'd really appreciate it. And I'm glad you joined me, and I hope to see you right here, same time, same place, next week for the Vegetables Love Flowers virtual online book study continued. Ciao.